So I'm James Altucher, sitting here with my good friend AJ Jacobs, and we're at the Helio Studios. Helio is a company that encourages interesting discussions between somewhat mediocre, interesting people.
Thank you.
And I'm the mediocre, you're the interesting. And they said, we asked them for guidance, and they said, am I interviewing AJ? And they said, no, just pretend you're friends. Well, we don't have to pretend. We've been friends for a long time.
Absolutely.
So AJ, you just had this book out. It's all relative. It bends up and down the world's family tree.
And by the way, I feel I was looking, I have little hairs sticking up, but I thought it was okay because I'm with James Altucher.
We're totally the most rumpled people on the planet. What if you had to clean up? What would you do?
A what?
If you had to clean up and dress nice, what would you do?
Oh well, that is.
Do you have a tuxedo?
No, I don't have a tuxedo. I mean, it is a constant battle with my wife because she thinks that it is important to look good, and I don't. So that's.
What is wrong with her?
She's right though. I mean, people are judged on their appearance, and so she'll go to places and she will not introduce me because she thinks I.
She's so embarrassed and humiliated.
Exactly.
This is my husband AJ.
Right. But anyway.
You should have a T-shirt that says "I'm with her." Just always stand next to her. So it's all relative. We've talked so much about this book, but I'm so happy to talk about it again because it's so interesting. First off, you had the world's largest family reunion. You came up with the idea that everyone's related. Now, so many people write boring books about genealogy from that point, but you always take it one step further, which I think is so critical to creativity. You come up with an idea, then you do something that no one's ever done, unique to that idea, and then you write about the process. And you're kind of the definition of process as art. So when you wrote My Year of Living Biblically, which is now a TV show on CBS, right?
Coming soon.
So coming soon. So if you weren't just writing about how you could live biblically, which I've seen 1,000 books about that, you actually said to yourself, I'm going to live for a year, 100% as the Bible suggests, and then you wrote about that. You didn't write a how-to. You wrote a "this is what I did." You wrote a story.
Right. That's a good point. Yeah,
you're like the end of the how-to, but in the beginning of the "this is what I do."
I like that. Yeah, that's what I feel. My life is not that interesting, but if I put myself in these extraordinary situations, then interesting things happen.
Why do you think most people don't do that? They come, they say, oh, they're ready to about how everyone's related. Well, and then they start quoting scientific studies.
Well, maybe because they have dignity and shame. I don't know. But yeah, because it's a pain in the ass, and it can be very, the health book was physically painful when I tried to be healthy.
Drop Dead Healthy
by
AJ Jacobs, New York Times bestseller.
God bless you. Some are just incredibly socially painful, like when I did the one about total honesty, radical honesty.
My Life as an Experiment was a chapter of that. New York Times bestseller by AJ Jacobs.
Do you have the ISBN number?
No, I know. I'm not that good. But it's all relative, mostly in social art. You had to organize an entire event. You like to sit. I know you like to sit home and never leave your apartment.
It was incredibly hard. It was I am, I think, naturally an introvert, but I forced myself to be an extrovert for this book and for most of my books. I actually think it makes my life better. I like having the balance. Even though I am naturally an introvert, I don't think that those categories, I think they're a little fluid. Like the whole gender fluidity, there's extrovert-introvert fluidity. So
are you trying to confess something?
I am coming out as an extrovert. But I identify as a male extrovert, but I am both an introvert and an extrovert. What about you?
I definitely think I'm an introvert who's very good at pretending for short periods of time to be an extrovert.
But that's the key for me. Pretending. Once you pretend enough, then you become that. I
remember you saying you give a talk in 2013, and you quote AA, "Fake it till you make it."
Right. Well, I like the slightly longer version, which is from the Habitat for Humanity founder, whose name I forget. But he said, it's easier to act your way into a new way of thinking than to think your way into a new way of acting. So if I act like an optimist, eventually I'll become an optimist.
Don't you risk, this borders on the whole affirmation discussion, don't you risk disappointing yourself if you just never become an optimist? Like, oh, I kept telling myself I'm going to be an optimist. That just doesn't, I'm so pessimistic now about being an optimist.
Well, I suppose you could just pretend not to be disappointed. You just got to keep going. But it is interesting because I think that was I talked in that speech you're referring to about the importance of delusional optimism, which I still believe, but I think it's complicated. Because to do anything successfully, you do have to be delusionally optimistic, because the odds are so stacked against you. But you also, I've seen the downside of delusional optimism, and he is in the White House. He is, because he was like, I don't need any experience to be president, and I can do a good job. He got elected because of his delusional optimism, so it was very successful, but it's a disaster. Because you do need some experience to be president. It does happen.
Well, so once you came up with this idea, it's all relative, did you start making lists of, okay, here are the interesting stories I could do. I could do the world's largest family reunion. I could find out all the obscure people I'm related to, like you went out and visited George H.W. Bush because you figured out how you're related to him.
Right.
You interviewed the Daniel Radcliffe who played Harry Potter. You interviewed Chrissy Teigen. You basically called up everybody you wanted to. Chrissy Teigen clearly wasn't your first cousin, but you said, I'm going to find out how I'm related to Chrissy Teigen, and I'm going to call her up and use that as an excuse to interview her.
Exactly. It is the ultimate LinkedIn. It's like 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, but everyone's Kevin Bacon. And so it's an incredibly useful social network, this massive family tree that anyone can get on these websites, like Ancestry or MyHeritage or Genie.
Do you know Genie was the fastest growing social network ever?
I didn't know.
Like within a week, they had like 100 million users.
That's
a week from one.
Well, it's so, I mean, everyone is, it's your family, and you want to, it's like, you know, the ultimate narcissism to see who you're related to. Which is why I thought, you know, that's what I like writing this book, is looking at family from every different angle. Because it is the most basic social network. You know, it is the basic form that we're all born into.
Okay, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
What about the idea that many people don't like their family? You know, there's also the saying, when you're an adult, you get to choose your own family.
Right, which I think is great, and I have several chapters on that. I mean, I have a chapter on the, you know, family feuds, including the Hatfields and McCoys, which is, I guess, slightly different because it's two families that hate each other. But yeah, one of the beauties of modern family is that there's the saying, you have your biological family and then your logical family. And nowadays, the logical family is almost as important, if not more important, than the biological family, which I think is great. Because, yeah, you can get, you know, Stalin had kids. You don't want to be, you know, you want to be able to choose not to be associated with your father.
Right. What did Stalin's daughter, she, what do you call it when she defected to the United States?
Yeah, and she wrote a fascinating book, or there's a book about her that I read. But yeah, so there's an example of why it's good to choose your family. That's one of your big things.
And again, choose yourself.
Choose yourself. Choose your family.
So it's all connected. So again, what I admire the most, though, always about your process is you come up with these very strong umbrella themes, like high stakes umbrella themes, like the Bible, or knowledge, like all the knowledge in the Encyclopedia Britannica, or health, or family. And then you say, okay, I'm not just going to look up scientific studies about family, which everybody else does, or I'm not just going to do some BS thing about genealogy. You then dive in and experience, and then you document, or maybe first you kind of say, here are the 20 things I could maybe experience. Right. And you sort of fine tune like how you could then experience each one, and you contact Jeannie. You really take, this is what's hard for people. They take steps every day. Like you must have called Genie.com or Ancestry.com and said, I'm doing this, can we work together on it? So you figure out easy ways to start executing. Then you execute on several different levels, and then you document the process. You simply sit down at the end of it all and write, this is what happened to me. And you don't have to get bogged down in the rant-like aspect of, oh, we're all family, we should all have peace. You actually have stories with an arc to them from beginning to end, and you're a writer, so you want to tell stories.
I love that. You describe my work much better than I do every time.
Can I ask you about your next one?
Oh, sure. We have talked about it.
Yeah, we have to. So I'll just throw out the topic.
Okay.
Because I think it's so interesting, because it's a boring topic
if
you write about it in a boring way.
That's right. But you have written some very not boring things about, but anyway, go ahead.
But you take that next step. So the topic is gratitude.
Right.
Then following the process I just outlined, what are the things you list to experience gratitude in a unique way that you could then write stories about later?
Right.
That's totally unique. Because anybody can write like, oh, I feel grateful for my kids, I feel grateful for the sunlight, all these BS things, and then do, it's scientific studies show gratitude makes you healthier 6 months later than people don't. So you can write all that BS stuff, and that's there's 100,000 books about that, but you have a particularly unique slant that is very A.J. Jacobish.
Well, bless you again. The idea is I take a cup of coffee, one of my greatest pleasures, and I spend several months thanking every single person I can who made that cup of coffee possible.
So you're not just like sitting there in the morning thinking, I'm going to think of my 3 things I'm grateful for to start off my morning. I'm grateful for how good this coffee tastes.
Right.
You go.
I went to Columbia. I thank the guys who picked the beans, the truckers, the logo designer, the guys who made the tires for the trucks, the guys who got the rubber. So it's showing just there are thousands of people involved in every little thing that we do. So it's all about connectivity.
Was anybody unhappy?
Well, it wasn't. When I was calling, some of them I visited in person, some of them I called, and it was like the opposite of crank phone calls. It was hilarious because I made those when I was a kid, but now you're calling up and you're saying, I called the exterminator who killed the roaches in the warehouse where the coffee is stored. And I was like, this is a little strange, I know, but I just want to thank you for keeping the coffee in the warehouse clean so that I can drink it in the morning. And at first they were like, the woman I remember, she's like, that is weird. She was like, I don't know.
So explain to me. There's a warehouse in America.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. You can smell it from 2 miles away. It's got coffee for football fields. I figured it out. You could make about 1 billion cups of coffee from the coffee in that warehouse.
Where's the warehouse?
It's in New Jersey. And,
where in New Jersey? I'm going to track it down.
Well, it's right near Newark. All these huge, it's right near the Amazon warehouse, which is one of many.
So there's roaches in the coffee warehouse.
Well, like everything, yeah.
Yeah, like everything, like every restaurant in everywhere.
So, I asked who are they thankful for, and they listed all these people who make the little forklifts and the people who kept the roaches out. And I was like, yeah, they deserve thanks. And she was weirded out in the beginning, but by the end she was like, this has made my day. Like, no one ever thanks us, but they helped with my coffee.
Yeah.
So I should.
So does that make you have then? So ultimately, I feel part of this is you improve in the process. Not only do you have stories to tell and a book to write and a different way of understanding gratitude, but you improve. You look at a cup of coffee, and now you've personally, again, this is the difference between doing and thinking. Right. You've personally now reached out to everybody involved, as far as you know, involved in making of that cup of coffee. And does that make you actually appreciate the coffee more when you sip it?
Oh yeah, I mean it is good for you. It's like it is healthy. It makes you happier, and it hopefully makes the other people you thank happier. The one thing you have to be careful of is if you're too, if all you are is grateful, you can be complacent and be like, oh, everyone's wonderful. Whereas, the bean pickers are being paid whatever, 50 cents a day. So you've got to use that gratitude as a launch point for action for trying to make the world a better place.
So how did you do that? In this case?
Well, I try to buy, a lot of it about the choices of the coffee, making sure you buy the right coffee, giving to charity. I'm part of this group called Effective Altruism, which is all about giving to the right places. But it is hard. These are global sources, so I'm not going to be able to change it myself, but I can do little things.
It just occurs to me that all of your books in some ways are about increasing your personal happiness. So for instance, The Year of Living Biblically, you sincerely asked the question, oh, this is a book that was written over the past 3,500 years. Yeah. If I live by the choices, obviously this book has withstood the test of time. We don't know yet if Harry Potter will withstand the test of time. We do know that the Bible withstood the test of time.
Well, it withstood it in that it still exists. I'm not sure it withstood it in that it's the best guide to life.
True, but you asked the question,
right.
Is this a guide to life? You actually did it for a year without break, living your life this way. Drop Dead Healthy, obviously people are happier when they're healthy, so you explored that for a certain amount of time.
Well, I will say this about that. I feel that it's a high correlation between your own happiness and your willingness to help other people. Because when I am depressed, well, not even depressed, when I'm bitter and angry, then I'm like all about myself. Whereas if I'm trying to make myself happy, and it's an interesting loop, because the more I try to think about other people, the less bitter and angry I become, because you get outside of yourself. So I do think there's a link between making your life better and making other people's lives better.
And did you conclude that through your books? Like, I mean, obviously that's something you could have thought of before, but did you see that viscerally?
I think so. Well, also it's like, I'm getting older. Hopefully, I mean, in my 20s, I was such an asshole. I was,
in what way?
Just incredibly self-centered, and all I cared about was myself and my career, and had no interest in the world's, how the world was doing. Hopefully, I don't know what it was, but partly it was faking it, pretending to care about the world, and eventually you become a little better and do care about the world. I'm still a selfish asshole, because I think that is very innate and hard to get over, but I'm much less of a selfish asshole than I used to be.
And how's this book done so far?
This book, it's interesting, since I believe in radical honesty. The reviews have been everything I could have hoped. The press has been everything I have hoped. The sales, not everything I could have hoped. And I'm not sure why. I think partly it is the Trump effect, which a lot of nonfiction authors talk about.
What's that? What's the Trump effect?
He just eats everything up. Like, people want to buy books about either how great he is or how horrible he is. Like, it's so urgent right now.
Do you also feel like people aren't really reading as much? Like, I'll give you an example. This Facebook Live video that we're doing with Helio and on my page, this will probably get more views than 99% of books published this year. I mean, the average, the average National Book Award winner, before they win the prize, has about 2,000 sales. Okay, this already probably has 2,000 views. So I feel like that wasn't the case even 3 or 4 years ago. Like, I would write for LinkedIn or other sites. I could have an article that could potentially get 1 million views. Now, that doesn't happen. That doesn't exist.
So you're saying
short form
all
or long
reading,
form.
not just books, but all reading. Well, yeah, I mean, it does seem, I don't know the statistics, I haven't studied them, but yeah, video is a monster that is just hard to stop. People, it's just so alluring. And I think that's a problem. I'm old, I'm like a dinosaur in that way. I think people think better on the page. I really do.
I think books are an event too. Like, you accomplished something. You did the world's largest family reunion. You visited all these people. You really explored something from every angle. That's not something you can really describe in a video without just being a talking head describing it. I mean, you could document a video as a supplement to this, right? But it's a storytelling in written form. It's its own art form.
Well, I think it's much easier to get into the grays and subtleties of ideas in the written form, and video is just, it's so. I remember they were trying to turn The Year of Living Biblically into a reality show, and when we set up the first meeting with the producers, they were like, "This will be great. We'll show we'll show the good and the bad of the Bible. We'll show how it sometimes can help. Sometimes, it's terrible for society." And I'm like, "Yes, I want to show that." And then cut to 6 months later, we're in Spike TV offices pitching the Bible Olympics, where these hunky guys would run down a mountain holding stone tablets and see who could get to the bottom first. I'm like, this is a fucking nightmare.
What if you had just done what they wanted to do? Would you on Kickstarter? You raised the money to shoot your own documentary.
I don't even know if I can do it. I just think the medium is so it lends itself to extremes and one-sided arguments. It's just so seductive that way. And I don't know if I could have made a subtle Greek show about the Bible. Maybe I could.
So it begs the question, really, I love writing and reading so much, but I think you have to explore spreading a message through video or even Instagram videos or other forms of media. I think are just as important now. If you have something you want to say, if you have a message you want to say. So you do it perfectly and it's all relative, but I'm assuming you also documented the process by video. Like your gratitude book, are you documenting you going down to Colombia and saying hi to the farmers?
Because it's also a TED Talk, because it's going to be put out by TED Books. They have a book section, comes out with a book every couple months. So yeah, I'm doing a lot of visual because you got to nowadays. And I will say, and I want to hear your thoughts on this because we've been talking way too much about me.
I don't mind talking. You're the most interesting topic. I don't mind talking about you.
That's crazy talk.
I say that sincerely.
But I do think visual, even when I wrote The Year of Living Biblically, I still believe that 70% of the book sale were because of my crazy beard. The Bible says you can't shave the corners of your beard. I didn't know where the corners were, so I just grew this insane Ted Kaczynski-like facial hair and down to my solar plexus. And those pictures I included on the cover of the book, in the book, in every press appearance I did, and literally I think that drove most of the sales.
So which is, people always say don't judge a book by its cover, but the reality is people have to understand a book itself is this is like a sculpture almost. It's a work of art by itself. People only judge it. People only see the cover before they open it up. So everybody judges a book by the cover.
Yeah, no one listens to that advice.
Which is probably why your wife doesn't want to introduce you at parties, and I'm single.
That's what we were saying. Nice callback. Nice way to bring it back. All right, now let me hear about this, because this is interesting. This book did incredibly well, and yet the cover is very simple. It's not so tell me about how you use visual in your...
I don't know yet. I think I'm still trying to figure it out. I'm starting to do more videos like this. I'm starting to use Instagram more. But I love the written word. I love telling stories. So this is basically not, people it's in the self-help category, but for me, it's a story about when I was broke and jobless and losing my home, and I had made a lot of money at one point, and I had lost it all through very stupid decisions, and I had to figure out what was I going to do to climb back up. I went from 15 million to dead broke, zero in the bank, and I had, it's funny, and I wanted to kill myself. And I had to
your tragedy is my joy.
Yes, as always, and I had to figure out how was I going to climb back out of this hole and see if it wasn't just a fluke that I made this money the first time.
And it wasn't. But that's what I love about your books, is you are the most you practice radical honesty in some ways.
Yeah.
Because you tell about your mistakes, you are not afraid. I think it's empowering in some ways to talk about how you failed and all the different
I'll do radical honesty about myself. What's, you're the year of living biblically, what is the one thing, other than saving a life, what is the one thing more important than honesty in living biblically?
Well, gratitude actually was a big theme.
Gratitude is important. The other thing is don't humiliate anyone.
Wow,
so
that is like the 11th commandment.
Yeah, so I make sure I never write poorly about anyone else. Everybody else's business is their business. I'm never qualified to judge anyone else's life, because we're all struggling with being on the floor and being disappointed in ourselves and putting pressure and anxiety in ourselves. And so this is just, when I write, it's just my story, and I never want to make anyone else feel bad because they're going through their own struggles. Right. And so I think particularly in today's, Twitter takes all world, everybody's just trashing everyone else, and it's all 100% of news is fake news. And You just have to be sincere about what's going on inside yourself. And that's ultimately how creativity blossoms. I'll never be as creative trying to do your idea as I'll be creative trying to do my story and live my life and then documenting that process.
Well, one thing I wanted, we don't have that much time left. These Helio people, they got tough.
What does a time limit mean? Why can't we just talk for 3 hours? Like, why do you guys care?
No, but one thing I am interested in is you are an idea machine, and one of the stories that you tell that I always think about is how you, when you were down in the dumps, you had, I guess,
yesterday,
and you sent to 20 unsolicited ideas to 20 people.
Yes.
And
I do that every day. I did that today, actually.
You did?
I didn't send 20 ideas to 20 people, but I sent at least 1 or 2 ideas to about 20 people.
You did?
Yeah.
Now, what I'm interested in is how do you generate those ideas? Is it just like shower thoughts, or do you have a regimen? Because I'd be interested.
Well, I think you're an example of this too. We're going back and forth on our praise, but I think the idea muscle has to be exercised. If I just said I'm going to come up with 20 ideas for somebody, and haven't done my research, and I don't know how to come up with ideas, there's a structure of what a good idea looks like versus what a bad idea looks like. And I work really hard. I think of somebody, and I work really hard. What would be a good idea for this person? And now I've been doing this almost every day for about 15 years. So I've gotten a little bit better at exercising this idea muscle. It's like any other muscle you have. It needs to be exercised every day, or it atrophies. And then it helps you come up with good ideas. But most ideas are still bad. I sent out 20 ideas today. Maybe I got 1 response back on like, oh, this might be interesting. Could we talk further?
Right.
And maybe more than 1. But it takes a long time to get good at it. But just like anything, it takes a long time to be a good writer. It takes a long time of practice and exercise. But if you don't come up with ideas with people, and this relates to what you said earlier, if you don't have a giving mentality, if you have a me mentality, then you have the wrong strategy. So if I said to you, hey Jay, meet me for coffee, I just want to pick your brain and I want you to be my mentor, you won't even, it's not like you'll say no, you won't even respond. Like I'm below the radar because you get a lot of emails every day. So I have to say, AJ, I found you 15 sponsors for your next World's Family Reunion. Or I found another thing to be grateful for, and here's all the phone numbers of the people to call who make up this thing. So I have to actually help you for you to call me back and have a 5-minute. Everyone says, it's just 5 minutes. Can't you spare 5 minutes for a coffee? No, because I'm busy. You have to. And then people say, well, how can I help you? I'll help you with anything. How can I help you? You just gave me a homework assignment. Now I have to think. It's hard enough helping myself. Now I have to figure out how you can help me. It's like, that's hard to do. I don't know anything about you. So research me and help me. Come up with ideas for me. And I would, whenever we talk, it's just always an exchange of ideas that we go back and forth on. Whenever we have the rare times I get you out of your apartment for lunch and we talk, it's always just an exchange of ideas.
I love that. And I mean, that's how, and it worked for you. When you sent those 20 people 20 ideas, 18 of them just totally ignored you, right?
Yeah, 17 totally ignored me. This is in 2002. And this is the second wave. This is when I realized, I have to give something instead of thinking just about myself. So one person most people still didn't respond because most ideas are bad. But one person said, oh, this is interesting. Why don't you manage some money for me? And I started a hedge fund out of that. Another person said, why don't you write for my website? I started a writing career out of that. The third person said, okay, let's have lunch. I didn't respond to him for 12 years. And then eventually Nassim Taleb, who it was, came on my podcast. That's how I responded to him finally 12 years later. And I said, why don't you come on my podcast instead? 12 years later, I hit response. And he came on.
Had he written Black Swan? Is that how you knew him?
Well, this was around Fooled by Randomness time. And but then later on he wrote Black Swan and Anti-Fragile. Now he's got a new book coming out. He's going to come on my podcast again. So, and that's the benefit of sending out ideas. People know you care. People know you've done the research. And then you can write about it. Every part of the process, even rejection, even failure, process is art. Your failures in this is art too. You write about those failures.
I think they're more interesting to read.
Yeah.
Like You don't want to read about someone who has a perfect life. You want to read about conflict. That's the number one rule.
Which is why Batman is more popular than Superman.
There you go. That was awesome. As always, thank you.
Yeah, and thanks to the listeners on this, on both the Helio channel and on my channel. I really appreciate it. If you have any questions, ask them, and I'm sure on a future episode we could answer them. And thanks so much.
Excellent.